Okay, we'll call to order this January the 16th, 2019 meeting of the Franklin County Commission. Roll call, Jet.
Commissioner Stottlemyre.
Present.
Commissioner Waymire.
Present.
Chair Howard.
Present.
Vice Chair Dickinson.
Present.
Commissioner Dunn.
Present.
If you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation that will be led by Pastor Leonard Chesbro of the New Life in Christ Church.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Gracious Father God, we thank you for another day, another day you've given us. Lord, we thank you for all your blessings. I pray, God, you'd guide and direct this service, this meeting, Lord, and just have your way. And Lord God, we want to do your will and your calling, and we just praise you for everything, Lord. And we just give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks, Len. Okay, takes us to correspondence and organizational business. Derek?
No, sir.
Everyone signed up for public comment, Jen?
You?
Okay, citizens desiring to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so at this time. Discussion is limited to 5 minutes, and the commission will not take action or discuss items at this time. Discussion should be limited to the matters of county commission business, and public comment is not permitted in regard to personnel matters or on pending legal matters. Items introduced under public comment may become agenda items at a later date.
Norman.
Norman Woogie, 3790 Pawnee Road, Ottawa, Kansas. We've got 2 new commissioners, so I thought about that. And I thought about the old commissioners, older, whatever. In the last 25 years, I spent more hours in the commission meeting than any of you. Commission meetings used to be all day. And there was 3 of them, and they worked pretty hard. When I first started attending the meetings, I was labeled and called pet names and discouraged, sometimes having as many as 5 executive sessions. I went to Topeka, and that stopped. Don't know whether it was illegal or not, but nevertheless. The evidence of incompetence is demonstrated in the motocross. I ask why. We all know. It was tempted by revenge, greed, evasive power, hate, and just plain neglect and incompetence. The traffic was terrible. No, didn't anybody look at the traffic? There was traffic lined up a half a mile each way. That's enough to make it. And my wife's more serious, more affected by this than me. Secondly, they broke all kinds of rules, operating without a permit. And you guys were on the board, and I saw how you guys voted, and I saw how you voted at the other meetings. Got to engage us once in a while. A person of authority can do many good things and right, but people remember the careless, selfish, and may even be a lazy attitude of letting somebody else take the blame. If you are accused of micromanaging, these people are hiding something. It always falls back on you guys. 2 good people were replaced because they voted against the people in our constituents. The commission has has to deal with problems because they are sold a bad lot of goods. These guys are professional salespeople. One time, years back, 2 salesmen actually approached the 3 commissioners, and their hands and knees, and the salesman approached on their hands and knees saying, Allah, Allah, I can remember that just like yesterday, like I was praying to the commission. Unbelievable. The commission bought from those salespeople. Wow. How gullible and foolish was that? They should have been asked to leave after that demonstration. These were smart people on the commission, but loved to have their pride stroked. Plain vanity. The mere fact that some of you have a second chance, lose your anger, and move on. And think before you speak, and vote like you have common sense. People tend to forget your mistakes. I don't. I have documentation of things that has happened within the county. I could write a book. Tomorrow there is a meeting in Topeka, Kansas at 7 a.m. start time. It's to teach about the rules and ethics of local governments. Might be worthwhile to attend. I watched on an educational TV channel yesterday on the possible appointment of a new federal attorney general. Very impressive. I was enlightened by his education, past track record, philosophy, expertise, and down-to-earth attitude. If he is going to be the new attorney and does half of what his character presents, there will be huge changes, and it will trickle down. He will not tolerate corruption and the oppression of the people of this country that are trying to do the right thing and living by the laws of our great country.
Anyone else? Okay, takes us to the consent agenda. Today on the consent agenda is to approve claim vouchers in the amount of $1,093,837.82 and tax change order in a positive $37.90. To approve the county commission meeting minutes for January the 9th, and to approve the county commission reorganization meeting minutes for January the 14th. There's no questions. We look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'll have to abstain on the 9th meeting.
Okay, Commissioner Stottlemyre. So yes.
Yeah.
Abstain on the 9th. Commissioner Waymire? Commissioner Dickinson?
I would abstain on the 9th.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. Okay, one item of business today, and that is to discuss the 2019 Franklin County Chip and Seal project. Eric?
Yeah, I know several of you have had questions about the chip seal project, and I know the last couple of years, if not several, we've had some concerns about when the chip seal gets laid down. The purpose of today's conversation is David and I still haven't had the time to really drill down into I know it's been brought up, the possibility of the county purchasing its own equipment and using its own manpower to do it. We don't have numbers yet, but we do want to talk a little bit about where that's at, and also talk about kind of what we're looking to do this year, because even if the decision gets made to bring it in-house, there's no way we're going to have all of that equipment and manpower ready to do a chip seal project this year. So with that, I'll let David discuss the map that you all have in front of you.
So it's that time of year where in years past, staff would bring the recommendation for the upcoming chip seal program. And so we're kind of at that point, but because of the other discussion, we wanted to bring this before you and talk a little bit about it. So the map that I prepared for you kind of shows you'll see some yellow highlighted routes. The yellow is what we did last year, and the highlighted blue routes are the roads that we've identified that we'd like to tackle this year. What has been done, and you guys are more than aware of this, but kind of everything is done in a pattern around the county. We've identified a couple of areas that we think can't wait another year, so we're gonna take a little closer look at those. But this is roughly 50 miles worth of chip seal that we would be proposing this year. And we've got the information almost ready to go, and we can bring that before you for official notice next week. One of the things that we would like to do is related to whether or not the county should provide our own chip seal services, is to really take a in-depth look at that. You know, what are the pros, what are the cons of providing that service? To me, that would involve talking to counties that are currently providing that, not just maybe the local folks, but some others in the state that have been doing this program for a long time. I want to really sit down with them face to face to talk about just how do they do it? What's their process? What equipment are they using? How many miles are they capturing each year in the chip seal program? And what does that do to their regular road maintenance program during the construction season? That's one of the things that we need to be aware of if we go down that path is, does it negatively impact what we're currently doing to rebuild roads in the county, the gravel roads and whatnot in the county on a yearly basis? If we take resources and put them on a chip seal crew, what does that impact? I think I know what it is, but I want to hear from others that are currently doing this to find out, just how they're going about it. Also need to, find out what the cost associated with acquiring the equipment to do this work. Another thing to consider is the experience of the current staff that we have. Do we have that expertise in-house in order to do that? I think that, we definitely want to do a professional level job at this, and so we would need to evaluate that and see if there were training that needs to occur and those sorts of things to be able to handle that.
I can jump in, David. I think there is just so much to this. It's easy to look at it, from 30,000 feet and say, well, just figure out what the cost of the equipment is and let's save that money. But I will tell you, there's no way we can do this with our current staffing levels and maintain any semblance of service. We've got a number of road grader operators, and if we kept staffing levels the same, we're going to have to pull them off their graders. And so that becomes an issue of who's grading roads. What I have found since I have been here is, the money we've saved and the efficiencies we've found have actually been kind of going in the other direction, like contracting certain things as opposed to bringing them in-house. Because when you add staff, you add salary, you add benefits, and it becomes expensive fast. And so I think part of this calculation is certainly going to be, just the economic part. This has nothing to do with the level of service we provide. It's cost of equipment, cost of employees over 5 years when we're given raises every year, depreciation of equipment, what new equipment costs. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. And we're going to do all of that because I've had several of you ask, but I would also be remiss to not tell you that early discussions that I have had with my contemporaries, they have told me to not bring it in-house, that it is far more headache than it's worth, particularly when you consider the companies that do this is what they do for a living, and what they might be able to do over a 2-week period. It's going to take us 2 months at least for a long time until we're able to gain some proficiency there. And so it's, I would never not do something because there's going to be a learning curve. If it's the right thing, it's the right thing. But kind of the early analysis that we're seeing is, I'm not sure this is going to be a good fit for us right now, but we'll continue our analysis.
Some of the information that I have, one of the first week I was here, I attended a meeting down in southeast Kansas with other public works officials. Well, there were, lots of different county officials, but the meeting that I attended, I just happened to walk in and they were talking, a couple of the folks were talking about their chip seal program. And so I visited with them right away, and they're currently doing it, and they get anywhere from 10 to 20 miles of chip seal done a summer. And it does take away from, what they're able to do otherwise. So it
10 to 20 a summer?
Yeah.
And we'd like to do 50 a year?
We've been averaging anywhere from 35 to 50 miles every year with the current system. One of the things that I would propose doing this year, I know just from reading the newspaper that some of the issues in years past has been the time it takes from when they put the chip seal down to when the striping crew comes in, the other contractor comes in to do the permanent striping. Some of those roads it's hard to see at night. And so we would propose to add some temporary striping that the contractor putting the chip seal down can utilize right at the beginning. So at least there's some reflectors kind of indicating those road shoulders and center lines in the areas that we will stripe. I think some of those roads, not all of them, get striping from what I can tell from looking at the information from past years. But we would try to do that to help mitigate those issues in years past.
That's your intent this year? That's your intent this coming
Yes, sir.
year?
Yes, sir.
And I think the other issue that they had was that the roads not always were ready for the chip seal. They were not prepared, the potholes and things dealt with, and so we were just chip sealing over problems.
Well, responding to Derek's comments a little bit, I mean, I know I've been on this and pushing this. Well, I know comparing Coffee County roads to ours is kind of apples to oranges, but their roads, if you drive their chip and seal roads, they're excellent, and they do their own. Well, a while back, I was in Osage County, drove by this guy's place that I know, and it's a chip and seal road in front of it, and it's Osage County. And I said, man, your road's great out there in front of you. I said, that's a nice job at chip and seal. Who did that? And he said, they do their own. He said, Osage County does their own too. And that road was done excellent. I can't believe, as far as talking about training and stuff, all you have is basically a spreader and an oil truck. The rest of it's just your dump trucks bringing the rock to them, the chip and seal. You got to put the oil on, you got to run the spreader, and then roll it. If we don't have operators that can run a spreader and a roller, then we got a problem already,
Yep.
without even talking about chip and seal.
Right.
Can't believe their operators are that much better than ours, that we don't have the people that can run it. I talked to one of the employees that's been with the county for years and years, and he said they used to have a chip and seal crew. And he said and I talked to a guy this morning actually in Williamsburg, and said he was on that crew, and they would do more than just chip and seal. He said they would actually rebuild some roads in the summertime, and then in the wintertime they would cut brush. And he said they also would take blade operators off the blades and run some of the equipment chip and sealing when they were actually chip and sealing. I've brought this up numerous times. I think a lot of times our blade operators are blading roads in the summertime that don't need to be bladed. They're just moving rock from one side to the other. And we've talked about them actually coming off and running mowers and whatever in the past too. But, I mean, I realize that's all stuff that needs to be looked at and throw numbers out there that we don't have right now. But I just can't see that it's something that would be that much worse for the county than, I'm thinking
I'd sure be interested to see what you guys find out.
the numbers, exactly. I don't have those, so I'm not
Yeah.
saying it would be, but I'm thinking, and like I said, we really can't compare with Coffee County's numbers as far as costs and stuff with their situation, but Osage County, I think we can definitely see what
wouldn't-
they're doing.
I'm with you. I'm not ready to give up on it yet, but I
Yep.
guess initial thoughts too, I would hate to staff for a cyclical event, staff all year for something that happens once a year. And then also, there's some things we do really well as far as the staff that we do have going out rebuilding roads, replacing culverts. Like you say, if they're not doing that, that's one of our strengths. That's what we do well. I'd hate to sacrifice that to go try something different.
Yeah.
And I agree that if, let's say it takes 5 to do a chip and seal crew. I'm just throwing a number out there. I mean, am I thinking it's a great idea to hire 5 new people and pay salaries and benefits and everything to get 5 people? No.
Right.
If we can't make it work by moving some of ours and maybe a couple extra people or something, then yeah, I mean, that's numbers too that needs to be looked at, so.
And I think one of the things that I would ask the commission for, I guess, for some leeway on, I feel like this discussion, at least part of this discussion, was born out of dissatisfaction that we have had with our contractor, namely how late in the season they get that down, in addition to the lack of lines. What I would ask is, we've got a new public works director. Let's see what him and I can accomplish here before, we have in our mind these things that may be broken or don't work right. And indeed, maybe a change needs to be made. But at the same time, I don't know if David and I, in working with this contractor, maybe we can shake things up, we can get it done earlier, we can get it done to better meet people's expectations. I mean, there's so many things. Like, in some ways, I feel like I am learning with him as we work together, and because I love Jim, but Jim was he kept things so tightly in-house, like I couldn't even get a lot out of him. And so before we go making dramatic changes, and I appreciate that you guys aren't telling us we want to do this now, but I'm just encouraging you to have some patience with us as let's let David get his feet under him. He doesn't even know what he has yet. I mean, he's still growing in the position, so.
We'll continue investigating
Oh, absolutely.
all avenues.
And another thing I think, David, that I'd like for you to look into, a while back, we had it must have been about 5 years ago, because it was the first time we did 50. They used a lot bigger rock than what these other counties next to us are using. It was the white rock, but it was bigger, and we had all kinds of, it was late getting on, it didn't set good, there was a lot of windows being broke, windshields and stuff. There was a lot of problems, a lot of complaints, and that's when we went to this other rock, this darker stuff, that hydite or whatever they call it, that we're using now, which is a lot more expensive. Well, looking at Osage County's roads and looking at Coffee County, they're using the white rock, but the real small stuff. And I think we could go back to that and save quite a bit of money, but I think we ought to talk to them and find out where they're getting it, and make sure we don't go back to that bigger stuff that was used on 50 when the problems were there.
Okay.
Because they're using the white rock, it's cheaper, quite a bit cheaper than what we're putting on, and they don't seem to be having the issues with it, so.
One of the things that I've heard, the benefits of this particular material that we're using now, is the traction that it gives compared to other types of material.
The fracture's sharp, it doesn't polish like limestone.
Yes.
There's also
And-
some passive solar benefits, it's
Yeah.
a darker material.
Exactly. And so those are some of the information that has been given to me, but we'll certainly look at all options.
A lot
What was it-
cleaner, I think, is one of the main reasons we went to it. It's a lot cleaner material. Limestone's by nature going to be kind of chalky, regardless of the size. So when that emulsion's laid down, it hazes over with the dust from the rock, and I think the adhesion wasn't as good. It's a lot of the reason we went to the expanded shale.
What was it cost us? About 200,000 for 50 miles that one year, more for that.
It was that much, but yeah. There's also the darker, it's also looks the same, trap rock, which is basically granite, which is what they used on the neighborhoods, because they ran out of the expanded shale this last year. It's cheaper per ton, but weighs twice as much, so a ton doesn't go as far. In effect, it's more expensive, I guess.
But on the other side of it, I feel like if it's a county doing their own, they're not gonna limit how much oil they put down.
Sure.
They're gonna put down enough oil to get a good seal, where the contractor's gonna put down enough oil just
Yeah.
to get by.
Right.
And they're not gonna think, well, extra oil is gonna make it better. They're gonna do what they can, because they're in it for a profit too, so.
Right.
And I think the other side of it, and I met with David and Jeff Welton, Ryan Fine yesterday, there's so many aspects of this that we don't. So when the chip and seal is being done, so imagine it being done on Old Highway 50. So you're putting chip seal down, but you also need flag crews, and you need crews to stop traffic. You have to assume, we would be assuming the liability associated with that, which we are not now. I mean, this is all on our contractor, and so in addition to the employees putting it down, we're paying or having our own flagging crews out there directing traffic during all this. There's just so many pieces that we would have to be cognizant of, and I'm sure there's a bunch that I'm currently unaware of. And so let us try to gather all of that up and bring that to you with the numbers and with all of the considerations, and then we can decide kind of what we want to do from that point.
And I think that it can't be a learning curve. We can't just do 10 miles this year, because we can't do chip and seal every 10 years. It's not going to happen, yeah.
The stretch of road, Nebraska Road and Labette Terrace, just off Marshall, right off I-35 and 15th Street. Got a lot of complaints about that stretch of road in the past. Is a kind of a neighborhood district that we went in with the neighbors. I think they paid for the chip seal. Then we agreed to maintain it. Very poor stretch of road. I think it's fundamentally poor. There's no good base or ditches there, and
We
we've patched it
Yes,
years
sir.
and years again, and it's just,
We talked about, when we came up with this, this map, these roads, we talked about that specifically. And I've been down it once. The indications are, just like you said, it's in terrible condition. I added it to this list just so that it would be on here, but if it needs to be rebuilt, we will look at that. We're not just going to put material over it. To your point, it's not going to do any good if we put chip and seal over a road that's in such poor condition.
I think at this point it might be, I don't know, not worth putting any more money into before we do something
You're right, right.
structurally. Will we have a plan maybe in the next month or two, or some options to look at? Because I think it's something we might have to spend a little extra money on. In the past, I guess, whenever it's came up, it's been right before we were letting bids. Well, we didn't really have time to put together a plan and go back and, that's too late. We'll get it next time, so.
We plan to drive the road again, looking at it in greater detail. And then we'll try to do that soon, so that we have time to come back to you with other options. Because we don't want to waste county money.
Probably get more complaints on that road than
Yeah.
any other stretch of road.
Right.
Or
Rightfully so. It's
say Janet and I will be starting at least her and I will be starting 2020 budget talks in the next couple weeks probably, and that might be a good time to talk about budgeting for a little bit more comprehensive construction out in that area, and maybe planning on it.
Of course, we rebuild road every year, so I guess that's not we could do that in-house. And least in our subdevelopments, 2 courses of chip seal over AB3 is what our standards are. I don't know if we did that, how well it'd hold up, but if we went back next year and, did 2 or 3 years of road, grabbed it with chip seal, it might start to build a base, or maybe it needs asphalt base.
Yeah,
but that's
no,
where-
You do have David Bergkamp's numbers and stuff. When they were out that, they actually been talking to some Richmond and Williamsburg. I don't know if anybody else about possibly chip and seal in their city streets. And I was talking to them while they were there, and they showed an interest, said they'd like to
no,
get a bid on our stuff too. And
it's
I said-
the circle,
I have it all right here if you need it. You got their numbers and stuff, and they said they had equipment, they had used equipment, whatever, for sale, and that they'd be interested in possibly bidding on our stuff too, which might help us if we have more competition in the bids.
Do you remember, Rick, do we ever have multiple bids on our
Don't think
chip
so.
seal?
Not since I've been here.
It's always Vance
APAC
Brothers and
and
APAC, yeah.
is it
Mount
Circle C
Vernon,
paving?
Missouri.
I don't have.
Or are they a subsidiary of Bergkamp?
Talked to somebody at the Kansas Association of Counties,
I don't know.
and he said they used to bid, and they were the low bid, and they didn't get it, so they don't bid anymore. And I told him, well, do it again, because we weren't not necessarily happy with who we had, so.
Say, more competition for
Yeah.
bidding would really help us.
Exactly.
Can't think of a time we ever didn't go with the lowest bid, unless they just didn't meet specifications.
I've been getting complaints about Labette Terrace, Marshall out there, and
Man, where's the other
they
one?
keep reminding me there's a benefit district with a cost share with the county to
Yeah.
maintain that road, and
Kansas City, Missouri's.
kind of been behind the curve in maintaining it.
Is the address they gave us last year.
Biggest complaint I have is they're doing 50 miles, they come in here and we don't have time to do a leveling course or something on these roads, and like Ian said, there's potholes are being covered over by chip and seal, and tire ruts and stuff like that, so we need to know before they're gonna come, so we can prepare these roads to be chip and sealed beforehand.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not gonna get into it too much because I know I've been away from it, and I want to hear what Dave finds out from other people. But I do know the last road the county did and did the chip and seal and rebuild the whole thing was from Oregon Road, from John Brown to Ellis. And I got to give the guys a pat on the back. If you go look at that road and you ride that road a lot, that road has held up better than any contractor road that we've ever had done. But I'm not saying it wasn't way out of cost bound. I'm not saying, the old equipment they had, once they got done with that road, it went on Purple Wave. It was holding it together with baling wire. But they did. If you drive that road, you notice that road hardly ever has any chug holes in it. And it's held up. It's like it is now, like it was 10 years ago, basically. But was it cost effective? Probably not. But it was such a small job that they didn't have an outside, and they did have a little bit of equipment. They did do it. And maybe that's a sign of in-house. Maybe you pour money into it, but maybe you get a better road when you're done, last more years. I don't know.
Did they chip seal it, or did
Yep.
they do the?
Chip seal. Yep, county did it all. But this was so many years ago, you can't compare. It's just the last road the county did. They rebuilt the whole thing, they chip and sealed it, they did everything. But it was, like I said, it was at the end of a kind of a year, and it was just adventure. And then once they got done with it, they got rid of the old junky equipment they had, but they did it. And, but it,
We have a fund set up for that, I know, in our accounting software, and so I just wondered, was there a funding from somewhere
no,
for
they
that,
had,
or-
I'm gonna do it from memory when I tell you this, and I might be totally wrong. Seemed to me they had $50,000 left in the road and bridge budget. And they used that $50,000. CHIP program come, basically, this wasn't a CHIP program deal where you did have a mill levy setback. It didn't come from that. If I remember right, it was strictly out of public work funds. It was just a road, all the commissioners, it was a direct route to Central High School. And it was something, all the commissioners come to an agreement that they want specifically do this road and their own and it wasn't a big enough job. Probably you could, the contractor, and you'd have been at their mercy, and you're not doing 50 miles. Was it 2 miles there? 3 miles at the most. And so, but they did do it themselves, and
Okay.
it was a long, it wasn't no speedy. We'd been contractors, we wouldn't have made,
Right.
we'd have lost money, that's for sure. But it was a sign of what the guys could do, but I don't know if they could do enough if they had to do multitude.
Janet, have we put bids out yet for it? Because we need, they keep saying the earlier you get there, the better chance you're gonna get it done timely.
We're almost ready to do that. I think that probably next Wednesday, we will bring the information to you so that we can advertise and get that process underway.
And that doesn't always
Well, I
work.
need to
'cause
do it yesterday.
A year
last
ago,
year,
we put
yeah.
out the bids early for that reason, and it didn't pan out that way. They came a little earlier, but then they left, and then came back way later. So they told us that, we did that, and that totally didn't solve the problem.
Okay.
But anyway, it doesn't hurt to get them out there earlier, especially if we're gonna try to get them out to some more people.
A couple things I want to tell you. One, we will do the research and we'll put this report together. It's not going to be biased. It's going to be, here are the facts, based on conversations, by research, by, estimates from equipment companies, that kind of stuff. The other thing, in general, I've been talking to some of the senior staff about, cross-training and making sure that people are, Jeff and Peg are going to get tired of hearing me say highest and best use. Using people to the best of their abilities, what's most efficient across public works, trying to get the most out of folks. So that's a long process. It applies here based on some of the things that you were mentioning, so we'll look at that. The other thing is, in general, and I think you guys heard me repeat this when we were starting the proximity park stuff, spending dollars one time. And so if it makes sense, like this Nebraska road area, it doesn't make sense to me to put chip seal down and then on a road that's needs to be totally repaired. And so we'll endeavor not to do those sorts of things countywide. So we'll look at it, we'll analyze it, try to come up with the best plan to proceed with input from all the appropriate parties. That's how we'll do our business.
And I agree with you, but we're gonna run into some Highway 50. There's one that we gotta have to continue chip and sealing probably on the rotation, but can we afford to go in and totally rebuild Highway 50? Probably not, so.
There are things that we might be able to do there.
To help?
To help in certain segments. And I want to, when Jim was here, he and I talked about some of those remedies that might help in the areas that see a high volume of traffic on a daily basis. And so we'll, as I have time to kind of flesh those ideas out, we'll come back to you. And that would be a discussion that would be appropriate during budget time to see if these are projects that we can do.
And Road and Bridge is just one department. I know, Derek, last year we looked into some departments, and we're gonna continue to look in all our departments and see if there's things that we can do, and not just Roads and Bridge, but all of them that could be done different, that could save money and still do the same service that they have done, so.
Yep.
Okay.
I just want to ask one more question.
Yes, sir.
Of course, I hadn't been around with the bidding on it. Can you guys can probably tell me, are they still, before they tip and seal, do they still do a 1-inch cap before they tip and seal?
I don't know the answer to that.
A leveling course?
Yeah.
No, just whenever,
I'm gonna say, because last time they did Rock Creek Road, they used the leveling course.
just whenever there's rutting.
Okay,
That's
I
something
just,
we have to bid separate.
they did, now that's what I'm saying, that's another thing you run into. If you're just not chipping and sealing, you may be laying asphalt too. I
Well, they
mean,
did some blade patching on 50, for instance, which
Yeah, last year we did.
they brought in
for
and
the first
dumped
time.
some asphalt, and then they just basically tried to level some places with the blades. And actually, it didn't look very good when they did it, but once they chip and sealed over it, it actually helped a lot of places,
They did a real good job there.
that's,
so.
biggest complaint I got on Rock Creek is the leveling course they put on was wonderful. And the people drove on it for 2 or 3 days, and then we went out and put the chip and seal on it. Oh my, you ruined that road. But it was just, that's the way it's done.
Yeah.
I tried to
That-
convince people that, but that 1 inch ain't gonna last very long.
No, but
It's a good leveling course.
the leveling course with the chip seal, it helps protect that road. We get a longer life out of it. There's study after study, report after report, talking about the benefits of the chip seal program. And I think you mentioned that we can't go 10 years between chip sealing the roads. And that's something else that the information, the reports say is, once you lose a road, you end up what maybe we have along Nebraska there, where we've totally lost it, possibly. And then you get into the expense of rebuilding, which is much more expensive than the chip seal process.
I do appreciate your willingness to do the due diligence.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Give us the information that we need, so, yeah,
Roy, anything?
No,
Right.
covered everything.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see what the numbers say and get this year's on the bids worked up and get those out, so. Okay, let's take us on to staff reports. Derek?
Yeah, just a couple of questions for the board. So next Monday, we're scheduled to have a study session, but the county's observing Martin Luther King Day that day. And so our next study session will be February 4th. My thoughts would be, and I've already spoke with my maintenance director about this, if you all want to do a facilities tour on February 4th, and we can make that our study session, how would you feel about that?
Me.
Okay, and then the other, are you fine with that, Colton?
Yeah.
And then the other question I have is we had a conversation about a retreat. And our last retreat, I believe, would have been December of 17, so it's been over a year. And I know, Don, you kind of talked about wanting to be caught up to speed a little bit. How would you feel about having a retreat in February as well?
Yeah.
Sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned.
February's good, not near as much going on as if we wait into spring. Seems like a lot more starts happening with spring breaks and all that stuff, so I'm fine with it.
And is there anything in particular, I know Janet and I put a lot of work into preparing reports and whatnot for the last one. Is there anything in particular that you all are wanting to see, or?
Last one was really well done.
I'd probably be rehashed for most of them, but just kind of like I mentioned, you guys all know, and just like what I used to, you sit through a budget period with everybody, you have a good idea of what Public Works is wanting to do for the next year and what ambulance services want to do for the rest of the year. But IN don't have a clue what their vision is for the next year. I can see the budget numbers, but I don't know what their plans is, you know?
Sure. Okay, very good. Okay, that's all I have.
You did say that there, did you know there's a luncheon today?
We are hosting a luncheon
So,
today.
yeah,
Everywhere.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
Say, and normally we put those on upcoming events, and I've neglected to do that. So certainly if you all have plans, I understand that, and we'll have a good staff showing there, but if you can make it, then that's great.
Okay. Jeff?
Good morning. I want to let you guys know that the county is out of the horse ownership business. We got the last 2 horses adopted out on New Year's Eve, and so they made their way to a home at a horse ranch up in Iowa. So we don't own horses anymore, which is a good thing. We have a couple more bills to round out on that, and then we will be completely finished with that. I'll be meeting with the organization that we teamed up with to help work through that process. We're going to kind of rehash how that process went, what went well, what did not go well. Some things that did come up out of that is the statute had just been changed in the previous legislative session. It caused some confusion when it came to court time. So we've been working with a legislative liaison through the Sheriff's Association to try to help draft some fixes to that. Had the county attorney also review that, and he also agreed with those changes, thought they would be good suggestions. So hopefully we'll be moving forward so that hopefully it's not us that experiences it ever again, but any other county that does, hopefully those things will help them out on that aspect as well. And then just to let you guys know, I was just reappointed by the Attorney General to the Human Trafficking Advisory Board, so I will be serving another 2 years on that state board. So if you have any questions on any of that stuff, just let me know, and I'll take our concerns up there to Topeka for that as well. Our contract with our food service provider in the jail seems to be going well. The complaints that we've had is that portion sizes, they explained to us that portion sizes were probably going to be a complaint at first when they come on, but the meals are all prepared, the menu is all prepared by a dietitian. We have everything's in order on that, and those complaints even are starting to go away. But just the transition, and nobody likes change, even inmates, so that's kind of where we were on that. Our count is down a little bit in the jail, which is a good thing, so we're very happy about that.
Anybody farmed out?
We do. We have 2 people farmed out, and the reason that they are farmed out are more, one of them, several of the victims are county employees, and so we have that person farmed out to a different county. The other one is our facility is not designed to hold certain people that display certain behaviors and activities, and so we have that person farmed out as well. The other ones that are farmed out to state hospitals, so those are court-ordered type things there. So, any other questions?
Any
Okay.
problems with the
Also,
weather?
Commissioner,
Yeah. Any problems with the weather here lately?
Well, I like spring better, but other than that, this last snow time, it worked out pretty well. People slowed down. We didn't have too many problems. Looks like this go around, if depending on which model holds true, if we get the thicker ice before the snow hits, then we would anticipate problems. But so far, we've been pretty good. I want to let you know, Commissioner Stottlemyre, that you had talked about knowing what people are doing in advance. And Derek and I have talked about this a little bit. I have a 5-year strategic plan that at some point, once you guys get all settled down, I will be presenting that to the board so that everyone kind of knows where it is that we're headed. So.
Thank you.
Allison?
I just want to update you on a couple things on the community correction front. Several of you were at a mental health legislative forum that happened at the Elizabeth Layton Center in Miami County, so I appreciate you guys being there. It was a great opportunity for local and key state stakeholders to see some of the issues that we have in regards to mental health, not on just the criminal side of offenders that we see, but also just community members that are suffering from that. One of the things that we're going into with community corrections is our grant writing process starts around February. So one of the things that community corrections is wanting to do for the 4th Judicial District, which includes Franklin County, Osage, Anderson, and Coffee, is to incorporate some more funding to help combat some of those mental health disorders that people have that are moderate to high risk in our community. And along with that, we are going to be piloting a program with the state and the Attorney General's office for domestic violence screening tool. We haven't quite rolled it out yet. We'll have some training done with our staff as well, but it is a great opportunity for us to gauge the domestic violence that is happening in our community and getting appropriate treatment for those individuals. So, that's all I have.
Larry? Or Midge? Midge is waiting.
What?
He called you Larry.
It's been years.
I said Larry, and here comes Midge, so I don't know. I'm
Oh, you said
confused.
Larry?
I'm confused.
Oh, man. Well, last year we had talked about doing triennial Board of Health meetings because as the county commission, you are serving as the Board of Health, though some counties have a separate board, you serve as ours, which we appreciate. So we've established a tentative schedule for those meetings, thinking that they would best fall directly after a Wednesday commission meeting, so you don't have to come back. Just to review, and I'll share with that in a minute, just to review, in general, the Board Health obviously serves that fiscal process, resource acquisition, stewardship is a part of your role. Some of the other roles that are associated with the Board of Health that we, in a regular commission meeting, don't often go into includes policy development, which is one of the first things we'll be talking about at our first Board of Health meeting, is perhaps a rabies. We talked about this before. We want to go into more depth into potential policy for rabies handling. Another thing is continuous improvement. So actually providing oversight to public health, but also to encourage continuous improvement in what public health does for the community. And keeping in mind that under statute, public health is designed to provide community services more than individual services, and lots of times we forget that, but it really is the community outlook. Though we provide individual services in order to get to the community sometimes, but in that. Another role is obviously the legal authority. You hold the legal authority. So when we write our policies internally, when we write our policies for the county, really the legal authority to do all that rests with you. And so we feel like a Board of Health meeting is another way to examine those things more closely. And then lastly, partner engagement. It is essential that we as public health engage partners across the community, and the Board of Health is a part of that process as well, and so we appreciate that. We've tentatively selected January 30th as the first Board of Health meeting. And then doing it 3 times a year, that puts the next Board of Health meetings as May 29th and September 25th. So if there is a problem with any of those, we're open to changing those or adjusting the schedule appropriately.
And what time? Just
Immediately following the,
And you anticipate the length of time?
yeah, about 5 hours, no. We would try to be done in about an hour and a half, but I would schedule 2 hours.
Can you give me the dates again? I'm sorry.
January 30th.
I
Yes,
deliver
it's,
Meals on Wheels on Wednesdays, and so I would need to know kind of I mean, if we get done at 9 and we'd be done at
Done at
11, that
11.
would work. If we're not done till 12, then it wouldn't, so I might have to.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and we can work with that. And we can always adjust the agenda. May 29th and September 25th. So last year, when we had the Board of Health meeting, they were pretty extensive because we haven't done it before. We've narrowed that first agenda so that it wouldn't be nearly so long. We'll keep it under control that way, and if we meet regularly, then we can attend to those issues.
I thought that was the Conservation District, but it's the 31st, I believe. Okay.
So is that, any comments, concerns other than that?
How's your flu vaccine? Yeah, I know you've been out of shingles vaccine for a long time, but
Yeah, and most places are because it's on back order across nationally. It's hit or miss whether we can even get it. Flu vaccine's fine. We're coming out about right without having to send any back this year, but we can always order more if we need it. It's plentiful, so we're good. Other questions? Thank you so much.
thanks, Mitch. Larry?
No, beauty before age.
We recently had a request from KDHE to do an inspection of the facilities that we have at Centropolis, the sanitation facilities. And I think that this is something I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with David and Derek with, but several years ago, the county declared to make that a minimum maintenance road that goes to that facility. And we couldn't get down that road because of the weather, so we had to cancel that meeting out. And we are also obligated to have that system inspected and sampled every 3 months. And sometimes it's not been very accessible to get our contractor down to do that. So this is another item that we're going to have to discuss with both David and Derek, and maybe doing something better with that road system to get to and from the lagoon systems that are currently down there. And that I know the state wasn't very happy when we told them, well, we have to cancel it because we can't get down to the facilities, but
How long a stretch is that?
probably 3/4 of a mile. It'd be an L shape because it starts to be a minimum maintenance road, and then practically have vacated out the southern end of the north-south road. But we'll have to gather some more information to bring that back to you, because we may be wanting to look at doing something a little differently with that road system.
Questions for Larry? Thanks,
We,
sir.
check my memory, did we put a box culvert in there back when we put the system in?
A new one was done fairly recently,
Oh, okay.
but that was on the east-west.
We just talked about it, we didn't do it back when?
No,
Okay,
we vacated that end of the road
Okay.
out going back.
I couldn't remember. Thank you.
David?
So it snowed last weekend. Our first call came in about 1:30 Saturday morning for a tree across Old 50. Staff immediately mobilized, went out there and took care of it. On their way to the site, they determined that we needed to get our folks rolling. So we had our shop folks were in by 3:30 that morning, and we had trucks rolling by 4. We did a split shift, so our trucks were rolling from about 4 in the morning till after midnight, 1:30, somewhere in there, clearing all of the paved surfaces Our blade operators worked daylight to dark, past dark, both Saturday and Sunday, and continued Monday, Tuesday, making sure everything was open. So we've been working with the school districts to make sure bus routes and that kind of stuff were good, and citizens have been good about letting us know problem areas, so we've been out tackling those. I happened to be out there on Saturday a couple of different times, and it's amazing to watch those folks work. Terrible conditions, but they attacked it with a positive attitude and helping each other out. Somebody had issues, getting stuck, whatnot. The other folks came to the rescue and got them up and running. The mechanics, gosh, they do yeoman's work. It's quite impressive, the work that they do to keep the fleet moving so that they can get these roads opened as quickly as possible. Both Jeff and Ryan, your superintendent and your road foreman, both worked. They worked Saturday and Sunday to make sure that things were running smoothly. They were out and about removing trees, coordinating activities, all of that stuff. So we've got a really big thank you to those folks doing that hard labor. And right now they're making sure that their equipment is up and running and ready to go for this next event. Last week, wet, heavy snow, particular set of issues, especially on the gravel roads, where if you go too fast, pulling up the rock material from the road surface, so they have to blade that slowly to help make sure that doesn't work, and that doesn't happen. I'm sure we'll be dealing with the repercussions from that storm for quite a while this year. All the rain prior to the snow event softened everything up, and the wet, heavy snow on top of it, it's just going to be a mess until springtime or thereafter. This next snow, like Sheriff Richards said, cold temperatures are going to be with it. That's a whole different set of issues whenever you start talking about ice. The temperatures down around zero, the salt quits working at about 15, 16 degrees, someplace in there. So we'll be battling that. Hopefully the forecast is wrong, but we're going to prepare for the worst. Some of the things that we had to deal with or helped with, we helped pull out a KCP&L truck that got stuck. We searched for a couple of others that were from out of state that were up in this area and called in for help. We could never find them. Jeff rode around for a couple of hours looking for them. We think they were over in Miami County, so they eventually got themselves out. We've repaired 5 mailboxes so far. I think we got a couple more to go, but that's whenever you're pushing that kind of snow, things happen, and so we're dealing with those things as we go. Plus, all the trees. Gosh, there was a bunch of those that fell. Just the heavy weight of that snow on the tree limbs. Hopefully, a lot of that melts before the next event, because I think wind's going to be picking up, and we could be dealing with that for a while also. So the staff I think they did an amazing job of helping our citizens. We're not perfect, but they do the best they can and do a great job.
When we talked about, I talked to the Richmond city guy, and he said the county truck did come.
Mm-hmm.
He'd already done it.
Yes, sir.
But he did say they did show up.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we got that behind us.
Yeah, we're going to investigate some of those types of things going forward to determine just what our responsibilities are in those scenarios. There seems to be some uncertainty. People change and whatnot, and so going forward here, I'll be going out to some of those city commission meetings. I think Derek mentioned that he might be going as well, And we'll try to drill down to those so that there's a solid plan in each of the communities that we might be servicing to some degree. We'll define that so that everybody knows what the expectations are.
I thought I was gonna have to call you to do my road so I could make my swearing in on Monday. And I don't think my road was ever plowed, but it did get open enough that we could get in, but
Okay?
might put me on your list.
Okay, anything else?
Only if you have other questions.
Yeah?
Oh, I'd like to thank the clerk's office and Derek's office and Human Resources office for working me through getting signed in. I never went, he thought I'd bought another house or two, but, I mean, because years ago, I know it's all necessary stuff you guys have to do to meet your obligations with the state and the federal laws and all that, but I appreciate you doing it all, so, thank you.
Okay, it takes us to commissioner comments and board reports. Roy, you want to start?
Sure, I went to Elizabeth Layton Center meeting, like Allison said, and their panel pretty well touched on the impact of mental health and non-mental health agencies that are stuck with dealing with mental health. They had the police chief there from Paola was on the panel, and people like that aren't mental health workers, but they're dealing with mental health patients because there's a problem getting the right place for these people to go. They talked quite a bit about that at that meeting. Also, went to ECAN board meeting last night, and I think the main thing talked about is government shutdown and how it's going to affect some of their programs, and they're good to go through February anyway on everything that ECAN does. And I think that's the highlight of the meeting. That's about it, Rick.
I also attended the Elizabeth Layton Legislative Dinner. It was very eye-opening as far as what mental health, how it affects not just the mental health facility, but our law enforcement and community corrections and medical costs. And they even shared that there are communities that are going to probably be bankrupted by the opioid crisis and the costs that are associated with that. So I think it's something that we really have to stay on top of. It's not going to decrease our mental health. They are serving probably more and more people, and the financing becomes tougher and tighter. I also have been attending the Ottawa City Commission meetings. The commission meeting last Wednesday, they talked about as Wi-Fi technology advances, and you start with the small cell antennas on electric poles, and they made a policy for within the city of Ottawa so that people just can't come in and put a new pole in or pick a pole and put things up there without their knowledge. They amended some of their truck routes because their truck route map still shows that Main Street is 59 Highway, which it no longer is, and some others that they added and some that they took off. And they also then did a new employment agreement for Richard Neinstead, the city manager. And I also attended the study session on Monday for the city of Ottawa.
Don, no?
No, I think I did. Thank you.
I attended the Elizabeth Layton Center, which was discussed, dinner. And then the Ransom Memorial Board, I went to that last night. Their year-end numbers, more positive and negative. I guess there were positives and negative. The numbers themselves were finished in the red, so they were negative. But as after depreciation and everything was considered, there were some good signs. Volume was up considerably, as well as their earnings before depreciation, interest, taxes are backed out. They don't pay taxes, but those were improved, which I think is a good sign, along with the volume for the feasibility, kind of long-term, whether or not we can, says good things about the future of healthcare in our community, and that it is feasible, and it's, the affiliation talks continue. They're getting closer towards, there's progress still being made. There's a chance they may have to call a special meeting for updates or to do some business on that before the next month's meeting. But other than that, nothing to report.
Okay, Derek, feel free to jump in if I'm missing something you think needs to be brought up. I attended the FCDC Executive Board meeting yesterday, and just a couple things that was talked about was they also have a strategic plan, and they talked about it and what their goals are with it and how to reach those goals and a few things like that. Talked about the city-county funding agreement for FCDC and went over all that and how that's going to be taken care of. Talked about the update on the search for a new director. Had a couple people talked about their terms when they will expire on the Onward Ottawa Board. And both of those are, one of them's in 2022 and 2021, so they'll be on that board for a while. That's most of what was talked about at the FCDC meeting. Okay, anything else?
I do have one question. So I think it's the 23rd of January, the Kansas Board of Counties has a legislative in Topeka. Are we involved in that, or do we? I know that we just saw most of our legislators last Wednesday night, so I know the city, all of their commissioners are planning on going, and I didn't know if that was something that we wanted to put on our, at least, I don't know.
You know, I think that's, I mean, you can do that at your discretion. I intend to have a meeting next week because we have, we want to get those bids for chip seal out. Having said that, if, that's obviously the five of you, that's your call. If you think that that is a good use of your time to go up there, then certainly, we can provide you with a van to do it and buy your lunch or whatever, but that's, I don't know historically that is something that the county has attended.
I haven't been to it since I've been on here. I've never went up to it, and I don't think too many others have that I know of. I don't know if you ever been up to it, Don?
Years ago, I went a couple times.
It says on here it doesn't start till 3 p.m.
Yeah, it's basically a meet and greet with your legislators.
Oh.
Yeah.
When is the thing for new commissioners?
Tomorrow.
Is that a one-day thing?
2.
2 days?
We're
Thursday-
going, Norman.
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday, Friday. Okay. anything else?
One other thing might need to take care of, I volunteered to be on an alternate on the, was it Lake Region?
And you'll be the at-large.
Yeah, at large.
Rick went off as commissioner, and I went on as a commissioner representative, which I was the at-large, and Roy's volunteered to be the at-large, which is not a commissioner's. Now, the Solid Waste Authority, when you do that, that will be a third person there. That will be a commissioner's choice.
Okay. We have Monday, the offices will be closed for the county for Martin Luther King Day. The next commission meeting will be January 23rd. And with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned.